Hampton Court Palace was built by Cardinal Thomas Wolsey in 1514. In 1528, the property was acquired by King Henry VIII, who lived there over the years with his 6 wives. Stories persist today that at least 2 of Henry VIII's wives haunt Hampton Court Palace. A sad white dress carrying a lighted taper is said to be Henry VIII's 3rd wife, Jane Seymour. She died from post-birth complications at Hampton Court, only a few days after delivering Henry's longed-for son, Prince Edward. While delighted with his male heir, the king was devastated at the sudden loss of his perfect queen. A pale figure is reported to appear on the Silver Stick stairs, which once led up to the room in which Jane gave birth and tragically died on the anniversary of Edward's birth in October 1537. Jane Seymour is the only one of Henry's 6 wives to lie beside him in the royal tomb at Windsor Castle. Henry VIII's 5th wife, Catherine Howard, was as wild as Jane Seymour was mild. Catherine's ghost is far more vocal, and sightings more regularly reported. Catherine was beheaded at the Tower in 1542, aged only 19, for adultery and treason. It is claimed that after she was arrested at Hampton Court, the terrified teenager broke free of her guards. She ran along what is now called the Haunted Gallery, screaming out to the king for mercy. She never reached Henry, who was in prayer in the chapel. The guards dragged her away, and she never saw Henry again. It is said that her anguished ghost now repeats its heartbreaking journey, screaming through the gallery for all eternity. It's not only spectres of former royalty seen at Hampton Court. There have been numerous sightings of a grey lady. People believe this to be the spirit of Sybil Penn. Sybil was a servant to 4 Tudor monarchs and a wet nurse to Edward VI. She nursed Elizabeth I devotedly through smallpox in 1562. The Queen recovered, but poor Sybil caught the pox and died soon afterwards. Sybil's tomb was disturbed when the church was renovated in 1829, and shortly after this, stories began to spread of a grey lady seen walking through the corridors of the state apartments and the clock court of the palace. Sybil is also linked to a mysterious spinning wheel noises that was said to come from behind a wall in a Grace and Favour apartment. Legend has it that when the wall was removed, an old, much-used spinning wheel was discovered. In 1871, 2 male skeletons in shallow graves were unearthed under a cloister in Hampton Court during a routine excavation. Their discovery brought huge relief to one palace resident, an elderly woman living in a nearby Grace and Favour apartment. She had complained of constant banging and knocking on her walls, but no one had believed her. All the disturbances ceased when the remains were properly interred.
In the sort of late 1800s, there was a lady who lived in Grace and Favour in apartments behind that facade. Her name was Lady Hildyard. She was in her 70s, she was a widow, and basically she had a lot of time on her hands because she was a bit bored. Now she would complain every night when she went to bed that there would be 2 strange gentlemen in her room. Now you might say, for a lady in her 70s, wishful thinking, or she should be so lucky. But these gentlemen that plagued her every night were not of the flesh and blood variety. They were ghosts, basically. And she would trot down every morning to the office of the Board of the Works, and that was the corporate body that looked after the running of the Grace and Favour apartments, and she would basically moan about these two apparitions. And in the end, they got so fed up, they said, look, we have no jurisdiction over the spirit world, and Lady Hildyard had to put up with the situation for another 5 years until, just opposite the main ladies' toilet in Hampton Court, there is a drain. There were workers who took up the drain cover in about late 1800s, and they were laying new pipes for drainage or whatever. Now 2 feet down, they found the bodies of 2 perfectly preserved male skeletons. Now, those bodies were taken away, they were buried, and funnily enough, Lady Hildyard complained no more.
It has been suggested that the anonymous men were victims of Roundhead villainy during the Civil Wars between 1642 and 1651. They may have been hastily buried in unmarked graves which were concealed during Wren's building of the Beaucrow Palace in 1689.
The previous tenant of the apartment tended to report poltergeist-type happenings.
Yeah.
I was very blasé about it and poo-pooed everything. Sylvia told me she felt uncomfortable.
Well, I did feel uncomfortable. I had this creepy, I always felt that my head was creeping. I was aware that there was definitely something in that room, no doubt about it.
This is the doorway where I allegedly see things, allegedly to myself, that is. On 7 occasions, I've seen, 7 or 8 occasions, the little lady, I believe, in blue, and each time it's a glance, first of all, and on second glance, she just goes very quickly into this wallway, this doorway, and then the wall behind it. On one occasion, this apparition in blue instead went very serenely and sedately into my hallway, and by the time she got to about here, I was running behind her saying, please stop, come back and speak to me. So very real was that feeling that there was something there.
We live in what was once an apartment occupied by Catherine of Aragon, and of course our lovely sitting room was actually used by Catherine as her presence chamber, where she met her official guests. Very interestingly, Our Lady in Blue was a member of court here for many years. Her name was Olwyn, spelled O-L-W-Y-N, and she was a lady-in-waiting to Catherine of Aragon.
I've got no fear at all in this palace, but one of the things I will not do, sitting on my own in this room, is have that door open like that. I couldn't sit with that door open like that. I have absolutely no idea why.
In May 2000, the noted psychologist Richard Wiseman conducted an experiment at Hampton Court to investigate whether ghosts really were all in the mind. He asked volunteers to describe themselves as either believers or non-believers in the paranormal, and asked people in both groups to record any unusual experiences as they have wandered around. As you might expect, believers reported more spooky sensations overall, but interestingly, many participants recorded more unusual incidents in the same places: the haunted gallery and the Georgian rooms, whether or not they knew about the legends. This suggests something is happening, but exactly what isn't clear. In October 2003, the palace's CCTV was checked over by security after some strange occurrences had been reported. Security staff saw that on the first day, the doors had swung open with what looked like a lot of force. But nothing could be seen which could have caused such an occurrence. On the second day, doors swung wide open again, and this time a ghostly figure can be seen, which many believe to be the ghost of King Henry VIII. Many people have since dubbed the spirit Skeletor. On the third day, the door swung open again, but like the first day, nothing was seen. It was not just the security staff who reported seeing something strange. A visitor wrote on the palace's visitor book that she thought she had also seen the apparition of a large man near the same door. Up until today, no living soul has ever come forward to admit that this was their prank. Hampton Court Palace's security staff and paranormal investigators alike remain baffled.